So, Doug, somebody writes in to say, I've always thought tariffs are bad for consumers, but Trump really seems to be getting great results from them. What do you make of them?
So I would divide them into two categories: tariffs as negotiating tactics, and tariffs as sound economic policy. Right?
Right.
Tariffs as leverage, basically, is appears to be working quite well for him. Right.
Sure. Yeah.
So what we're dealing with is a situation where other countries apply tariffs and we don't, and so Trump says, "Hey, to take these deported aliens back, or we slap tariffs on."
Hmm.
Okay, and so it's a stick or that sort of negotiating thing, and he just signed a reciprocal tariff
Right.
thing, so that whatever tariff you put on, we match it.
Uh-huh.
And that's also a negotiating technique that is probably going to, over time, lead to fewer and fewer tariffs. Right. So if on libertarian grounds or Austrian economic grounds you're against tariffs in principle,
Uh-huh.
on a practical level, using tariffs as a negotiating tool quite possibly could reduce the number of tariffs being applied in the world.
Right. Okay.
Right. So that's negotiating. At the On the other end, let's say it's just a simple economic thing. If Trump says we're going to apply tariffs across the board, and it's going to be totally great, these other countries are going to pay for all the stuff. The problem with that is anybody who sells anything knows that taxes, whatever taxes are applied or whatever tariffs are applied, are get rolled into the cost of the product.
Hmm.
So Americans are going. It's not going to be China or Brazil or Mexico paying the tariff. It's going to be Americans buying those products. So,
Uh-huh.
so if let's say nobody in the world was applying tariffs except for us, and we decided to raise revenue by means of tariffs,
Right.
it would be easy politically to tell the people, see, I'm making China pay the tariff, but actually you're paying the tariff because of the cost of goods. Now, that could be a wash for Trump if Trump does something like eliminates the income tax and then says we're going to raise all our revenue from tariffs.
Uh-huh.
Then Americans are paying both way, either way.
Right.
Then and that would be probably a real net plus because you pay the tariff, but you don't have to fill out forms. The IRS doesn't track your income. You don't have all the intrusive
Right.
stuff. You just pay the tariff when you go down to the hardware store and buy the widget.
Yeah.
Okay, so there'd be a net increase of freedom, but if you're covering the costs through tariffs, Americans are paying the tariffs. But it'd be terrible if the income tax doesn't go away and the tariffs get
tariffs are
applied
added.
across the
Yeah.
board. Now we're being soaked another way.
Yeah.
But I don't think that that's what Trump is headed for.
Do you think you also have the use of tariffs? There's to generate a revenue stream, but then there's the use of tariffs to rearrange the production market, to reshore. Something that's produced in China, we want that produced
Yeah.
in America. Do you think the tariff is effective for
Yeah,
that kind
I
of?
would group that under negotiating technique.
Okay.
So let's say Toyota wants to build a manufacturing plant
Uh-huh.
in Mexico.
Okay.
And Trump says, you do that, there's going to be a stiff tariff. Build that plant here,
Uh-huh.
no tariff, right?
Got it.
And so then they do that, and that's a good example of how a tariff policy could reduce in fewer tariffs,
Yeah.
right? But if he applies the heavy tariff, if they build in Mexico anyway, he applies the tariff. That just makes the cars more expensive for Americans.
Is there any biblical principle to be thinking through as you process this, or is it just kind of common sense?
I think it's providential, basically common grace, common sense.
Uh-huh.
So if the government has the authority to tax,
Yeah.
then this would be one of the obvious things that it might occur to rulers to tax.
Yeah.
And then you have to figure out, okay, are you establishing perverse incentives,
Right.
which a lot of big fans of tariffs just unthinkingly bake in the perverse incentives, and they just have a very superficial view of what's going on.
Do you think it's the most beautiful word out there?
No, I think I can think of other beautiful words.
Great.